everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, today I'm going to be doing another spiral straight pour with one of my favorite color palettes, which is inspired by Mexican fire agate. If you don't know what that is, check it out. It is an absolutely gorgeous stone. It kind of looks like dragon scales. It's absolutely beautiful. And so that is what inspired this palette. The colors that we have going here, this brown is a custom blend of Arteza Van Dyke Brown and Sangria Red. So the Van Dyke Brown was a bit of a cool brown, and I wanted it to be warmer. So I put these two colors together, and the Arteza paints work really well with the Decoart Americana Decor line for creating those gorgeous Boulder cells. So we have Decoart Americana Decor Metallics in copper, emerald, and the Ever Magic 24 karat gold. I am an Arteza and a Decoart affiliate, so check out the description box below for coupon codes for those websites and my affiliate links. And if you purchase these paints off of their website, or purchase anything off of the website, when you use those codes or links, I receive a commission at no additional cost to you. So that is a great way to keep this channel afloat, stocked up in supply, so I can keep bringing you the groovy content. These paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. That mixture is then thinned with my concoction of 90% water and 10% Floetrol. So I add that concoction to my paints, to my mixture of paint and Floetrol. I add the Floetrol and water mixture until I get the consistency that I'm looking for, which is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound. Let me see, maybe you'll see that better on the gold. It is making a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. It's making a nice thin stream off of my stick. You want it to be nice and straight like a pencil lead. You don't want it coming off of there lumpy. If it's lumpy, you need to keep mixing. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art Inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute, but if you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has a video right here on YouTube telling you exactly how to do the painting, the exact paints used, the brand, the color, the consistency, your recipe, all of the good stuff that I cannot fit on a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for that particular technique, and here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in that painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette, or you can build off of those 2 colors. There are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do here is put some paint in my cup. This is going to be my background color. I want to make sure that I have enough of this background color to react with my Decoart paints. So these Arteza paints tend to have a bit of a glossier finish, and The Decoart paints have a matte finish. So within the Decoart line, there is the matte metallics and there are the regular metallics in the Americana Decor line. They're all matte. The regular ones are still matte. So the matte paints in conjunction with a glossier paint creates a hydrophobic effect. And that is what causes the cells, because the Decoart paints are pushing away the Arteza paints. And that is what is giving those awesome cells. Using the paints together, using the Decoart paints together, the way that I do and allowing them to blend in the cup is what gives those 3D Boulder cells. So that's the science behind what's going on. Now, lay down a base coat, because when I stretch these paints, I want them to slide evenly. Something has to stick to the canvas, and if you don't have a base coat down, it's going to be whatever is the first paint that touches the canvas. So that's going to be what's on the edge of your puddle. If you don't have a base coat, you will lose a lot of your pour, and sometimes the coolest stuff is what happens on the very edge of your puddle. And so you would definitely lose that. And that's, you know, we want to give ourselves as many options as possible. I did cover the sides with straight paint first, because the way that I mix my straight pours, it's pretty thin, and especially with Floetrol, you might not get the best coverage on the sides. So it is better to be proactive than reactive. In that case, it's easier to take the 2 minutes to just cover the sides than it is to take the hour that it would take to try to match it all up later on, especially when you have custom colors like this. And especially with these round canvases, the sides are puckered, so you want to make sure that you get the sides, and that's also why I have to use my finger on those sides, because a flat tool is not going to do the job. Uh-oh. Bernie 4 times today. Bernie's feeling a little sleepy. Okay, let's put some paint in a cup. The way that I like to do my colors in general, I will have a color that is close to the background color. So I have copper, that's kind of in that family. Pour from up high, allow it to sink. So I do the color that is closest to the background color first. Not all the time, but when I'm going for a specific effect, I want that glowing effect. And I will have the color that has the most contrast go in last. In this case, that would be the 24 karat gold. And the reason for that is somehow a tiny bit of whatever the last color is that goes in the cup, a bit of that ends up at the very bottom of the cup. So the bottom of the cup winds up being the center of your painting, and then you get a bit of that highlight in there, and it usually becomes the focus of the piece. So how your paints go in the cup does make a difference. Okay, coming in with the gold. Okay, and I have a bit of my base paint left. And I'm just going to go over top of the paints that popped up to the top. So now all of the paints have the background color to react with. Okay, so I'm going to start in the center. Actually, let me do one more bubble pass. You want to pop the bubbles in your base coat so they don't come through your pour. Let's see. Starting in the center, spinning slowly, pouring quickly. I don't want to pour quickly because that's just going to make it look like a ring pour. I want to pour slowly so I get more, spin. I want to spin slowly so I get more of a spiral effect than I get that ring pour. You can do really, really nice ring pours using a spinner. You get some very tight rings, but that's not what I'm going for. And the closer I get to the end of the cup, the closer I will get to the canvas, so it gives me more control. Here comes the gold. I'm very shaky today. Oh my goodness gracious. Too much coffee. Guess I shouldn't have had that second cappuccino before I poured. And what I like to try to get, once I get to that contrast color at the bottom of the cup, I try to get at least 1.5 turns that's the golden ratio, right? 1 to 1.5. So, ooh, that was close. That was close. That was almost a botched dismount. I caught that baby. Whew. Okay. That was too close for comfort. So I'm gonna center my spiral. I want to get the spiral in the center because, you know, when I spin it, it will spin pretty evenly. But I want my spiral to be as centered as possible. Only on round or square canvases would I place a focal point in the center. As a design rule, if it's going in the center, there needs to be a sense of symmetry. And if you're doing a rectangle, it's not quite as effective. So typically, if I were doing something rectangular, I would be adhering to the rule of thirds. If you don't know what that is, do check it out. Very important information about design, which will help you a lot with your compositions. Okay, so now we wait. We sit and we wait. We allow the paint puddle to percolate. This is where patience comes into play. It is super important. As these cells pop up, so what is happening? The reason that we pop the bubbles in our base coat is because as the air that is in the base coat comes up through the paint, it is bringing the paint with it. So what's happening in here is there's layers of paint, and there's bubbles underneath. And when I pop that bubble, like say I pop the bubbles here, there's green under here. So I pop the bubbles here and then little green cells start popping up. But because these paints have a hydrophobic effect, they don't stay little tiny pin head cells like the kinds that you would get from your base coat. They stretch, they push that paint away, and then you get bigger cells. And then the bigger your cell is when you start, before you stretch, the bigger your cells will be after you stretch. So allowing them to develop a bit before you start stretching will help you to get the cell magic you desire. Why does it sound like this paper's catching? All right, let's see. Sorry for the dead air. I was thinking. So this side is definitely going to come off before that side. I'm going to lose a lot of what's here before that reaches where it needs to get to. But when that stretches, I'm going to get more of these green cells that pop up later. The ones that I call pop-up cells. The Boulder cells, that's these guys here. These are going to stretch out and look super 3D and awesome. These, the ones that are just kind of popping up all alone over here, these I call the pop-up cells. They'll be more uniform in size when it's all said and done. Whereas the Boulder cells, well, they look like rocks. They're all different shapes and sizes, but they have a very 3D effect, which I love about this technique. Okay, I think we can give it a spin. I could wait longer, but I'll get more pop-up cells in there. I think we're good. I like what's going on here. All right, let's give this baby a spin. And remember, you do not have to spin fast. This does not have to make it to your wall. It just has to make it to the edge. And if you have ever had, okay, so I'm sliding it over a bit now. So I want to cover this edge. And I'm sliding my canvas to the further edge of the spinner. And that will actually pull that paint harder because it's on the outside edge. It's like if you're on one of those spinny things at the playground, you know, the ones where we all wound up with whiplash at some point. You know that the safest place is in the center. If you're on the edge, you're going to be hanging off that thing if you get somebody with a little bit of strength spinning it. So same idea, centrifugal force. I'm going to spin a bit of this off. I hate to lose copper, but I also had to like get some of this paint off because I don't want it to be too much paint. But I think that's good. I'm going to get a lot of pop-up cell action going on here. That'll fill in a lot of that, but hopefully I'll be able to keep some of this negative space here. You know, and I could keep spinning this and this will just get bigger and, you know, more interesting. But I want to keep that because that looks like, you know, natural rock kind of striations. It's very much in line with what I'm going for. Although I have to tell you, there is part of me that is seeing a dragon eye in here, and ooh, it would be kind of cool to embellish it and put a dragon eye in there. Maybe. We'll see. Yep. So I'm just going to just on the edge where I want some of those pop-up cells to come up. So one of the nice things about the straight pour and the Floetrol mix, even if there are air bubbles in there when it dries, it does not affect the finish with how thin it is. So, you know, if I were using like Liquitex pouring medium and there were bubbles in there, you will absolutely see those bubbles in that finish when it dries. But the way the Floetrol dries so flat, you don't really notice it. So you can kind of be, you know, very deliberate about where you torch and why. Like, I wouldn't want to torch in here because A, I don't want any of the background color popping up through my cells. And I don't want cells within my cells. So I want to try to mitigate how much cell popping action happens in here, because this is my focal point. But I want cells to pop up here. I want some cells to pop up in here. And so that will be where I torch. All right, I am going to let this sit, and then I will bring you in for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. It's been sitting for a while. This is about what I was hoping for cell-wise. I want it there to be like this, you know, like the bubbles kind of coming in, but I still want it to have some of that negative space in there, because that is really what gives it that spiral effect. If it just fills in with cells, you know, it still kind of has a spiral effect, but it's not as strong as when, you know, you have that nice contrast going on in there. But you can see the gradation in the cells. It's funny, the copper didn't sell. I probably need to open a fresh jar of the copper. You know, when they sit for a while and they start getting thick, I don't think it has quite the same cell making effect, I've noticed. So, you know, try to use it up before it gets to that point. But, yep. So here's what it's looking like. All sparkly and wet. And, you know, when this dries, this is not going to be anywhere near as impressive as it is when it's wet. However, once varnished, it will be back to its glorious magnificence. But, you know, because the paints are matte and Floetrol has a tendency to even matte more, it's not going to be super pretty when it's dried and unvarnished. You can see how that center really, really glows. And that is why I am very conscious about what paint ends up in the very center, because it really gives it that effect that it's the brightest part of the piece and it's glowing. So I will bring you in for the close-up of the dried piece. Hang tight. Okay, here it is, fully dried. And you can see very clearly now how the cells appear more matte than the background color. It is very, very evident. And this is what it looked like when I did the first straight pour, or the first two, number 15 and 16. And I noticed how the cells looked matte, and that kind of took me down this journey of figuring out, why did the paints do that, and how do I make it do it when I want it to? And so that right there is the basis behind the straight pour. But you can see, the cells are matte, they're not as blingy and beautiful, but they will be. Once this piece is varnished, all of that beautiful bling will come back and restore it to its beautiful looking state. But there it is. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Please do like, share, and subscribe. If you are subscribed, please make sure that you have clicked that bell so that you get notified when I put up new videos. YouTube changed something, and you now have to click that bell to be notified. So I have people saying, oh, it's good to see you back. And I'm like, I never left. I think people just aren't getting the notifications. But do check out the description box below for links to my PayPal tip jar if you feel so inclined. The affiliate links and coupon codes for Arteza and Decoart and several other affiliates. You can find that in the description box, as well as the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you will also find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there. Post your masterpieces. Ask your questions. Get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. All right. That is going to be it for me for today. I hope you all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.